All right, beautiful day here in Moss Beach. This is a location that I have not painted before. So just been walking around trying to figure out how I want to compose this painting. There's a couple ways of approaching it. I'm in the shade here of some cypress trees, and I want to paint these trees with the coast in the background or the ocean in the background. And I have a couple choices. I could do sort of a zoomed in shot or a more distant shot. So let me show you what I'm thinking. All right, so here is the zoomed in shot, you know, where I could focus on some of the color in the tree trunks here and some of the distant coast, and also including some of the water down below. All right, and here's a more distant view where I could just focus on the overall shape of the trees and maybe some of the shadows on the ground here. All right, so I think both of these compositions would work. I'm gonna try the zoomed in version, and you know, whenever I paint a new location, I definitely have my doubts. There's this process of sort of exploring and experimenting. So yeah, so I always feel like the first painting in a new location is sort of an icebreaker. You can take it home and then you know, build on the strengths and learn from the things that didn't work. But anyway, I'm gonna give it a go and we'll see what happens. So I've got the Anderson easel today, and I'm gonna be working on a 14 by 18 inch panel. And I've got it in the vertical position here, as you can see. Got my usual palette of colors here, and I'm using liquid. I've got an assortment of brushes, but I'm probably going to be using mostly these natural bristle flats. So I toned in burnt sienna and then just did a quick sketch, sort of established where I wanted my horizon, and then also, you know, trying to include some of these cliffs going down so that you're looking down into the water, but then also looking out into the distance. There will be some wave activity out here too, so I've included, you know, usually at the horizon they're more horizontal, and then they kind of come in more at an angle, which is nice to get some diagonals into the painting. So I'm going to mix up a dark and then start playing around with these shadow shapes in the trees. All right, so I've made two mixtures here. This one is burnt sienna and ultramarine, and this one is dioxazine purple and yellow ochre. This one leads more towards a red color and this more towards purple, which makes sense. I think I'm going to experiment with, you know, the yellow ochre and dioxazine first. All right, so at this point, I'm just squinting at the subject, trying to simplify and look for interesting patterns in the foliage and the branches. This painting is primarily just a light dark painting. So if I get the shape of the tree, or like I get the shadow shapes right, then I think the painting will work. All right, so I'm liking the pattern I'm getting here, but I'm always, you know, walking back to make sure from a distance. So right now I'm about 8 feet back, so I can just see the overall design. So I'm constantly moving back and forth. All right, so it's time to really think out the values in this painting. Obviously, the darks are pretty simple. I mean, I don't want them so dark that there's no color in them. I like there to be color in those, you know, in the tree trunks and whatever. But you know, comparing, say, the water to the tree, I mean, look at that value shift. And yet, you know, in the water, you've got a shift from the darker portion of the water to the white water. So I'm gonna have to keep the value of the darker water pretty light in order to make this overall dark abstract shape stand out. All right, so I mixed up a color for the sky using titanium white and phthalo blue. The white water using titanium white with a touch of dioxazine purple. And then I mixed the color for the water here using phthalo blue, ultramarine blue, titanium white, and a bit of burnt sienna. Oh, also a touch of cad yellow medium. All right, I'm gonna start with the sky, mixing in a little bit of liquid. And this is just the rough in. I just want to establish, you know, more or less, like I said, my value pattern and design. You know, the negative space here, have a nice design for that. All right, so I'm gonna start by putting sort of a breaking wave out in the distance. Even though there aren't any out there, I'm kind of using these closer waves as reference. And I'll probably have some white water along the top of the wave. At this point, you know, I am just playing around more or less to try to, like I've said, just playing around with design ideas. All right, now I'm adding a little bit more blue to the mixture and a bit more white. You know, I'm using the color of the water to carve out the shapes, you know, the shape of the foliage. There's some shadows forming at the base of these rocks, and I want to include those in the painting. So I'm going to make this portion around these rocks whitewater so that those shadows will really pop out. And I think I might have the whitewater kind of, you know, sweep in like this. All right, I'm gonna add some of the shadow in the white water using titanium white and ultramarine blue. And I'll just, you know, approximate the color and value for now. All right, so adding liquid to the white water mix here. I'm just gonna use the white water mix for this whole area. I'm keeping the paint thin so that I have some flexibility in case I want to darken it up or, you know, or change it in any way. All right, so here is what I finished up with. And as I mentioned, my goal was to create a strong, simple design using light and shadow. And then I also wanted to have a convincing feeling of light, especially out over the water. It was really challenging, you know, trying to determine colors in here since the scene was so powerfully backlit. And then also when I tried to lighten, you know, any of these darks, it sort of diminished the feeling of light out over the water. So one of the things you sacrifice when you're painting looking into the sun is you sacrifice color. There's less color. But there is simplicity in the design. Just as I mentioned, it's just light and dark. And so there's something nice about that, but there's not a lot of color. You know, I may try to add some color in these shadows here in the studio. You know, often I'll do that. I'll wait till the painting is dry because I use liquid and it'll dry in 24 hours. And then I can experiment, and if I don't like the effects, I can just use mineral spirits to clean it up. And there's, you know, nothing lost. I'm back to the original painting. But who knows? Maybe I'll leave it the way it is. All right, so let's take a look up close for some brushwork. I was trying to keep the paint fairly thick and the brushwork spontaneous. You know, especially in the branches, you can see the edges are not perfect, leaving some of the tone coming through too, I think creates, you know, some nice warmth in the shadows. All right, well, this painting was definitely a challenge, but I feel like I learned more on the difficult paintings. So I'll definitely come back and try this again. As usual, let me know what you guys think in the comments, and if you'd like to see some extra videos and help support the channel, there's a Patreon link down below. Other than that, stay creative, and I'll see you guys in the next video.